Welcome to Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into something really interesting, looking at how gaming, video games might be used for therapy. Specifically, we're focusing on kids with cerebral palsy, or CP.
Right. And cerebral palsy, based on the research we've looked through, it's actually the most common physical disability in childhood. It stems from an injury to the brain while it's developing, and that can impact, well, obviously movement and posture, but also things like sight, hearing, touch, even thinking, cognition.
It really affects a surprising number of people. We're talking over 34,000 in Australia alone and more than 17 million globally.
Wow.
Yeah, and a new case pops up roughly every 18 hours or so. And it's lifelong, which means therapy and support are pretty much constant needs.
Absolutely. And a lot of that therapy, it focuses on improving mobility, leg movement, but also really critical are those daily living skills, things that need hand and arm function, like getting dressed, eating, just handling objects.
Again, anyone who's tried to get a kid to do repetitive exercises knows how tough that can be, even if it's good for them. So that leads us to the big question in our sources. Could something inherently engaging, like gaming, actually help improve not just hand function, but also hand sensation for kids with CP, which is really important because often therapy targets the non-dominant hand to kind of boost overall independence.
That's a really key point.
Yeah.
The research points out that a lot of children with CP have reduced tactile sensitivity. So they might struggle to really feel textures or know where their hand is without looking. That's proprioception.
Right.
Yeah, or even identifying an object just by touch.
So this isn't just about letting kids play games for fun then. It sounds like we're talking about something specific. Serious games. What exactly does that term mean?
Well, yeah, serious games are basically games designed with a primary purpose that's not just pure entertainment. They've got a specific goal. And within that, you have things like health gaming or exer games. These are specifically aimed at improving physical ability or health.
Okay, so they're built differently from, say, a regular entertainment game.
Often, yes. The mechanics, the challenges, they're tailored to hit specific therapeutic targets.
And this idea using games for therapy with CP kids, it's not brand new, is it? I think our sources mentioned it goes back to the late 90s.
That's right. But back then, the main focus seems to have been mostly on, well, keeping kids motivated, making therapy less of a chore.
Which is important.
Definitely. But what's kind of novel about the research we're diving into is that it specifically tries to improve tactile sensation as well as motor function. There's this understanding that sensory input and motor output are, really closely linked. You kind of need both for good functional outcomes.
Right, that makes sense. You need to feel what you're doing to control how you're doing it.
Exactly.
So this is where the Orbit gaming system comes in. Sounds pretty specialized. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, Orbit. It's described as a custom-designed system meant to be used at home, and importantly, it's accessible. It was developed really specifically to improve both hand sensation and function for children who have limitations there.
Okay. And it's not just like a standard console. What are the parts?
No, it's got two main bits. There's a laptop, which runs these custom-made games, and then there's the controller, which is this spherical thing called the Orb.
A sphere. Why a sphere?
Well, that design makes it accessible. You don't need fine finger movements like you do with a lot of standard controllers. It's easier to manipulate.
Gotcha. And the games themselves, are they, actually fun?
They sound pretty engaging. One example is guiding a squirrel up a tree, collecting things like acorns, but you have to avoid obstacles like branches. Another one involves flying a biplane through the countryside, dodging barns and windmills and stuff.
Okay, so action goals. Keeps them interested.
Right. And the actions needed to play are designed to encourage certain hand movements and keep both hands involved.
And this Orb controller, it's got some tech built in.
Oh, yeah. It has smart sensors that track how the child is holding it, where their hands are, and it also provides haptic feedback. So vibrations, basically, that correspond to things happening in the game. Adds another layer of sensory input.
Okay, that is clever. But you mentioned keeping both hands involved. How does it ensure that? Because that seems crucial for therapy.
That's maybe the most unique feature. If the child takes either hand off the smart sensors on the Orb, the game just pauses instantly.
No.
Yeah. To get it going again, they have to put both hands back on the controller in the right spots.
So it forces that consistent two-handed use throughout the whole time they're playing.
Exactly. Which is, right at the core of the therapeutic goal.
So the researchers took this Orbit system and tested it out.
They did. They ran a 6-week trial with families in Adelaide who had children with CP.
And obviously they were looking at the physical therapy side, but did anything else interesting come out of that trial?
Yes, and this was actually a really lovely finding. There was a noticeable improvement in social interaction, especially between siblings.
Really? How so?
Well, the researchers think orbit kind of acted as an equalizer. Because it's accessible, kids with and without hand impairments could play together more easily. Those performance differences you might see with standard games weren't really there. So they could genuinely play together, compete, cooperate.
That's fantastic. So it's not just individual therapy that's helping build connections within the family, too.
Precisely. Less isolation, more shared fun, which is huge.
What about the parents? What did they observe?
Also very positive things, anecdotally at least. They mentioned more communication, like kids talking strategy together. One parent even said their child started talking more openly about their CP when visitors saw the orbit setup, like it was a natural way to bring it up.
Wow.
And another parent felt they saw real improvements in their child's general hand control in everyday life.
So lots of encouraging signs. But okay, let's get to the measured results. What did the study find about improving that tactile sensation piece?
Right. So this is where the findings are a bit more, let's say, cautious. The study itself, as the researchers noted, was probably underpowered, meaning they didn't have enough participants to definitively prove changes in tactile sensation.
Ah, okay.
So they're clear that more research is needed there with a bigger group to really nail down the impact on sensation itself.
Right. So the jury's still out on the touch sensitivity aspects specifically from this trial, but what about actual hand function? Could the kids use their hands better?
Yes, that's where they did find a significant positive result. The children's non-dominant hands, the one often targeted in therapy, showed statistically significant improvements on standardized tests.
Tests for what exactly?
Tests measuring manual manipulation, dexterity, just overall hand function.
Yeah.
So after the 6 weeks using Orbit, they could perform those tasks better.
Okay, that's still a really important finding. Even if the why regarding sensation isn't fully confirmed yet by the study, the what improved function is there.
Exactly. It suggests that this kind of engaging, game-based activity, using this accessible controller, it can lead to tangible gains in how well these kids can use their hands.
Which has real-world implications for their independence, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And, thinking bigger picture, this fits with how we see gaming evolving, right? Our sources mention things like augmented reality, like Pokemon Go, reaching huge audiences.
It really highlights that potential,
Yeah.
tapping into the fun, the engagement that games offer, but for purposes beyond just entertainment. The conclusion seems to be that, as technology gets better, as smart devices are everywhere, gaming could become a much bigger player in health, well-being, personal development.
Moving beyond just chasing high scores.
Right, towards meaningful outcomes.
Yeah. Okay, so to kind of bring this all together from our deep dive today, it seems like these engaging game systems, like Orbit, they really do hold significant promise, especially for improving actual hand function in kids with CP.
Yes, the function improvements seem quite clear from this research. The sensation part, well, that needs a closer look with more people involved.
But still, a very positive direction, and it really underscores how important accessibility is when designing these things, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. Making games inclusive isn't just nice to have. It can actually unlock these kinds of therapeutic benefits.
So maybe a final thought for you, our listener, to mull over. As gaming tech just keeps accelerating, VR, AR, haptics getting more sophisticated, how else could we harness that power? What other kinds of physical or even cognitive challenges could these engaging, game-based approaches help tackle?
It's a really exciting space to watch.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.